Well, good morning, YouTube. I was just putting together this video of some work I did today. I was up in the pasture and it was just dry enough for me to start digging the other Hugelkultar mound that I was going to put in. So I thought I'd give it a go. In hindsight, it was just a tad bit wet, but I got a bulk of the work done. And as the ground dries now, I'll just come along and keep tidying up. Right now, it's just wet enough that the soil's really clumping together and it's not spreading around. It's kind of smearing around like peanut butter. And I need it to dry out a little bit so I can break it up and spread it that way. So what I'm doing here is just digging a trench about the size of the mound I want. So whatever your footprint is, 5 feet wide by 10 feet long or 10 feet wide by 20 feet long. Whatever you want that footprint to be, dig a hole that big. And depending on how soon you run into water, really depends on when you stop. We have high water right now because it's winter time, but in general, we have water that sits in this area, which is why I chose it, because the mounds just sit basically and constantly have their feet wet, and it just makes a nice, just a really efficient way to have all the water draw up into the mound where the plants are actually growing. So I would have done a much better job had it not been so muddy. I just kept getting myself into these ruts and then I would sink, and I really just didn't feel like fooling around and making a bigger mess than what I was making. So I just, for what I was doing, I think I was deep enough. I was probably well over 2 feet deep when I stopped, and I was already at water. So it makes, when like I said, when it's this wet, and the ground isn't terrible, but the soil is still pretty wet, it just makes it hard to work with after the fact. So you get it all mound up and you do all this stuff, but you can't really backblade it or anything or spread it very good by dragging it, just because it's so thick, it smears. It doesn't do a really good job. It's a tad bit frustrating because you're backblading and moving the dirt around, and it's not really doing what you would like it to do. This part of the yard of the pasture is a natural depression. The original homeowners dug it out to collect some of the water that built up in the pasture. I'm not really sure if it was intended for the animals to drink or if they just dug it down as a spot to collect the water, but nonetheless, these mounds will basically sit in, they'll have wet feet pretty much constantly. So that's when it starts to get frustrating. I can't really back in or I mean pull in or back out. I got to use the bucket to help myself along, and it becomes kind of useless at that point because you can't carry dirt out of the hole that you just dug yourself into because you're using the bucket to climb out. So at that point, it's just best to stop and stop myself getting stuck or something. All right, so it's super greasy back here. One of the advantages to doing this is you're closer to the water table, and it allows the wood to get saturated and soak up the water that much easier. And I actually had to stop digging because I hit the water and it started flooding in there. So I'm deep enough. I wish I could get back in there and kind of smooth it around a little bit, but every time I went in, I sunk. So I'm just going to start dropping big old logs in here and building up the bottom. One thing I didn't mention in any of my other videos is you you're going to have a species most likely in your area that are poisonous to plants. For us, it's like oak and walnut are both problematic for a lot of plants. So try not to use those species. If you do, let them be species. Let them have sat on the ground for a long time. This one here is a oak, and it's sat on the ground for who knows how long. I've burnt it. It's gotten rid of a big part of the things that make it poisonous to other plants. So I'm going to set up and get ready to load some more logs in. And talk about getting ticked off. I looked behind me and there's a friggin' bull in our pasture. And last year this bull was a little baby, but this year it was big and it had horns and it wanted to play with the John Deere. So we went at it and I chased him around and around and around, literally around the tree at one point. But I did get him back into his yard. A tree had fallen and broke the fence. So once I got him back up, I picked the tree up, broke it in half, threw the half back in the neighbor's yard that was his, and the other half that fell in my yard, which was also his, I just kind of scooted back away from the fence. So we'll see. The boy, he's back in his place, but we'll see how long that lasts. They got a pretty bad fence over there. Doesn't really do a very good job. So, all right, let me get back to it. So I have a stash of logs back here. We've got several down trees, and I just kind of go through and pick out what suits me, and what suits me are these rotted ones that have been on the ground for some time. I actually tried to burn them at one point, and it was still so damp out that the fire really didn't do much. But what you're looking to put into the bottom of the Hugelkultar pit is rotted, not completely decomposed wood. You want it to have some mass there that it can, sponge up water and be a pathway for mycelium and stuff to grow. So don't let it be so rotted that you drop it in and it just disintegrates into nothing. I'm sure there's value there, but I don't think as much as a log that's in this stage of decay. And here I'm just scooting it through the woods, dodging trees, and I'll take the long way home here and show you where the kids, one of their favorite spots is right next to the garden and everything. That's the pasture I was working in the other day when I was hauling that big tree out of the field there. It was up and to the right some. So there's Julia's garden with the stick fence. Here's our other pole barn. The kids like to play right around in here. There's a boxing area and they box and stuff. Hit the bag, punch the bag, work out. We'll just drop that in there. So really what I'm looking to do is just create a mat out of this, these bigger logs, a mat of wood that has surface contact in all the spots where the water's going to be. I had a little fill in between the logs just to kind of keep things in place. And here's a good look at how I start the base. All the logs in there are, in the range of a foot or so in diameter. Mostly rotted, not completely decayed. So, and then I just started shuttling small sticks back. I had some piles of debris, and I went and cleared those out, and brought them over and dumped them in here. And then I went and scraped up some of the stuff off the forest floor, just medium-sized stuff and small stuff. So with a little closer look up, you can see I tried to find, when I was doing this, I tried to find as much of the older decaying stuff that was on the forest floor already. Simply because that'll hold more water than a newer limb will, or a newer branch or trunk or whatever from the tree. So, and then I got in a bunch of stuff from the forest floor. I just go through and I scrape, the top 3 inches off with all the leaves and all the branches and all the stuff in it. And I take that and throw it on the pile. And what I'll do now is I'll come through and I'll push all this clay surface soil on top, and that'll be that, really shape it. But this one will sink down quite a bit, and then probably next year I'll do like I'm gonna do with that one. I'm gonna add some more stuff to the top, but not this clay stuff. I'll go grab stuff from the forest and throw it on top and see how she does. Right now it has sweet peas growing in it. They've been growing all winter, and it's kind of neat. They're just kind of holding on, not really doing much, but they're growing. All right, let me get back to filling this in and see how long it takes. So the cleanup was the tricky part. I didn't get it as high as I'd like to. Oop, there's the peas. And like I said, they've been growing all winter long, just really slowly, gradually, obviously. And some time with the kids out there as well, and bones and playing. But so it's pretty low. I got about 2 feet, maybe 3 feet of total mass there, and I gotta just keep building it up. But I was getting so frustrated with how gummy everything was, I decided to stop for the day. And next time we have some decent dry weather, I'll build up the rest of the pile, and and it'll just wait until then, I guess, till we get some decent weather. But I hope you folks enjoyed. It's really a simple process, and if you think about how wood lays in the forest and how it rots and decays and things grow on top of it, this is very similar, and you can see the principles behind it. So I hope you maybe try it out in a small setting, just a few gallons of dirt or something and a few chunks of wood. You could try this with just one piece of wood and bury it and wait and see how much rot comes off, and mycelium and things like that. The roots really do benefit from the extra nourishment that's down there, but also the extra ability to transfer water and nutrients along, the decaying wood fibers. But all right, folks, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Like, share, subscribe, comment, any of the above. It all helps me out. So have a good day.